Good Sunday morning to you, everyone. Thank you for joining the county seat. I'm Terry Wood. It is flu season. Well, we all know that. You may have gotten your shots, may not. But the flu we're going to be talking about today is a different type. It's the avian flu, commonly referred to as the bird flu. Why is it important to you? Well, it's important to the entire state of Utah, and that's what we're going to discuss today with a state veterinarian, a backyard bird owner, and one of the major egg producers of Utah. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first we went to the turkey farms of Sanpete County for a look at what they're doing to protect against this flu. Here's Derek Dowsett.
Public health concerns like the flu virus can be prevented with a flu shot in humans. But how do you keep something like a turkey from contracting a virus? Avian influenza, or AI, is a virus that is carried by wild birds. But when it is contracted by domestic birds, such as a chicken or a turkey, the effects can be devastating. You wouldn't expect to hear a term like biosecurity in the same sentence as turkey farm, but this may be the new reality for the poultry industry.
We have been improving our biosecurity effort for pretty strongly for about 3 years. And as we hear about AI and it becomes more prevalent around the country, yes, we ramp up our biosecurity efforts. We're spending a great deal of money and we make daily efforts with many people. I think it's becoming the way we just need to accept this is business today, because it's so important that we protect our product and our investment in those birds, that we keep them safe and free from those challenges.
This isn't the first time that avian influenza has been on the minds of poultry growers.
Our production in Utah, turkey production, we had avian influenza in the early 90s, and it was devastating. It was many birds euthanized, many birds depopulated because of that issue. We have not had any avian influenza challenges since then, but we're paranoid about that disease coming to our production.
Growers in Utah are right to be a little paranoid. So far this year, AI has wiped out 48 million domestic birds nationwide.
That may not seem like a big deal. Those were just the losses, but the long-lasting effects of that, it's going to take almost a year before the normal supply of turkey is recuperated.
The danger posed by AI has prompted growers to create protocols to keeping chickens and turkeys safe on the farm. The bulk of these best practices involve keeping the wild birds separate from the domestic birds, which is more involved than you might think when you're talking about stopping a virus.
It's very difficult to control germs and bioorganisms, that are moving and sometimes natural to the environment even. But I think an awareness is important, because people aren't going to make an effort if they don't know.
The idea is to keep things like bird droppings from finding their way into the operation, as well as keeping each part of the operation separate from the others. Upon visiting a farm, an employee would need to change out of their clothes, take a shower, and change into a pair of clean clothes that are kept on site. Different sites may only require the use of overalls, booties, and gloves. Boots are another point of contact that is disinfected both upon arrival and before leaving. Vehicles that need to access the farms are also cleaned and disinfected as they move from place to place. There is even a protocol as to the order that the flocks are visited for employees who work at more than one farm. It's important to remember that these concerns relate directly to keeping the birds safe, protecting the food supply, and watching out for local economies.
We're the largest employer in Sanpete County. We have about 500 employees. Most of them are in this county. With the proximity of our farms and being secluded in the valley, if it comes to the valley and we were without product for a year, I mean, it's tough to stay in business in that scenario.
For the county seat, I'm Derek Dowsett.
Thank you, Derek. That is amazing that this flu could wipe out an entire economy of Sanpete County if it took hold. Well, when we come back, we're going to find out what the state's doing to keep it from taking hold. We'll be back after this.
The weekends just never feel like they're long enough. By the time you get to a destination, you're worn out and you may need a vacation to recover from your last vacation. The solution is closer than you think, and that's just what you need. You can find the desert at Little Sahara, the cool refreshment of Yuba Lake, escape to the green of the forest on the Nebo Loop. Make your escape to Juab County. It'll change your family forever.
The Bear Lake Valley is a beautiful, rural, historical, and recreational paradise. The changing of the season makes now a great time to come our way to see the warm colors of fall in contrast with the cool blues of Bear Lake. Visit us in the Bear Lake Valley. Come for the ride, stay for the adventure.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
Welcome back, everyone. As we said, we're talking about the flu today, the avian flu, and why it's important to you and why it's important to the state of Utah and our agriculture industry, as well as backyard bird owners. First of all, let me introduce our panel today. We're going to start down here on the far left, and this is Casey Ballard. He's from Plain City, Utah, and you're a backyard bird owner. Chickens, ducks, etc.?
Yes, I am. I usually have 8 to 12 birds.
Okay. Cliff Lillywhite is the co-owner of Oakdale Farms, major egg producer and poultry producer here in the state of Utah. And Dr. Barry Pittman is our Utah State veterinarian. Thank you all for being here today. Barry, perhaps we could start. Give us a little idea of what is avian flu for those who really don't know, or bird flu as we call it.
Yeah, it's important to first identify what this disease is all about. And you asked earlier if it was seasonal, and yes, it is here. It's concentrated in the flyways. We have 3 big flyways in the United States. Ours is in the Pacific Flyway that overlaps into Utah.
That's migratory paths?
That would be the migratory birds, mainly ducks and geese, but there are others in the migratory path also. But the main ones we concern ourselves with are ducks and geese. The avian flu is carried by these birds, and it's an inapparent infection, so you don't really know they have it. It shows up in healthy birds. So what we try to do when the flyways are most active, which would be in the fall, of course, where they fly south, and in the spring where they fly north, we try to keep an eye out and do surveillance activities, especially with wildlife, and try to find it out there if we can and see exactly what type it is. The avian flu, it has 2 different components that are very important, hemagglutinin and neuraminidase, which are found in the capsule of the virus itself. What happens with these capsules is they can mutate, and there's 2 types of mutation that occurs. There's something called an antigenic drift and an antigenic shift. The antigenic drift is slow, it takes a long time to develop, so not so important, but the shift is what we worry the most about, because then you can have a drastic change in two things that happen with the virus. It can be highly lethal, which is what we consider mortality.
To humans or to birds?
Mammals and
all
birds.
Mammals.
Yeah, there's a lot of mammals that can get the flu. So even though it's called the avian flu, all these flu viruses can mutate back and forth across the spectrum. So there have been some bird flus that humans can acquire and vice versa. So it does mutate within all mammals.
Well, let me move on for just a second here to Cliff Lillywhite. As a major egg producer, poultry producer,
right.
Have you come across the avian flu in your birds?
I want to add something to what Barry
Okay.
said first too. The wild migratory birds, your ducks and geese, are carriers, and it usually does not make them sick. The problem comes when they commingle with domestic birds, and it does make them sick. And so what happened earlier this year, it started in California and then moved to Washington and on over to the Midwest, primarily Washington and Minnesota and Iowa, and it ultimately killed 36 to 40 million laying hens in the industry, which was very, very significant, that made it difficult for the rest of the industry to keep up with what we needed to do.
Well, we have a lot of duck hunters in Utah. If ducks are major carriers of avian flu, can that be harmful to the duck hunters who are taking their catch home and cooking, eating?
Not the duck hunters themselves, but if they come home from duck hunting, and if they have backyard chickens, they really need to sanitize and clean their feet so they don't transmit that.
Oh, it can't.
I would also add, Cliff, that it's important probably to wear gloves too when you clean birds and that type of thing, because since it's an inapparent infection, you don't always know when you shoot ducks and geese, and you sometimes they field dress them. It's probably important to take some precautions with that too, just in case for themselves.
In fact, we're not even, FDA requires us to have anybody that works for us not have any birds at home, and if we discourage bird hunting altogether. But if they do, we make sure they come back and disinfect their car, sanitize their car, buy new clothes so they don't spread it into our birds.
Now you're talking about the people who work for you,
Yeah, the
not
people
to
who work
have the
for
backyard birds.
Right, they can't have any parakeet or anything.
Because nothing like that.
No,
It can
no.
spread to the house pet birds.
Yes.
Some pet birds can.
Because I've got a friend who has about 3 house birds, so this is interesting to know. And Casey, I know you're a backyard bird owner, but we're going to have to take a break here in just a second. You look relieved that when we come back, we're going to find out how this affects you and your birds too. We'll be right back after this break.
The farmer awakes as night releases its grip on darkness. This will always be home. As farmers, we understand that there is beauty in this solitude, and we also know that there is power in working together. The Utah Farm Bureau has always been there to fight for the needs of its members. To this day, Farm Bureau is still providing insurance to Utah's hardworking farm families, as well as your family. Utah Farm Bureau members also enjoy other benefits of membership, with discount programs on items ranging from vehicles and ATVs to health and wellness. The membership fees aren't big, but the results are. We've been around since 1916, and we're not leaving anytime soon. Utah Farm Bureau. We work for those who work to feed the world.
I lived in Phoenix and then down in Orange County in California, and I met a small town girl and she brought me home. Just the smaller community that makes you feel like when you go somewhere you know everybody. You know, the sporting programs, the dance events, all these kinds of things, you run into people you know and that care about you and your family. And that makes it just a wonderful place to have little ones like this.
Isn't it time you found the balance you've been looking for? Uinta County, Utah.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about flu season, the flu season this time being the avian flu season. And with us are our state veterinarian, the co-owner of Oakdale Farms, and Casey Ballard is a backyard bird owner. And we didn't get a chance to get to you a second ago in that first segment, Casey, but I want to ask you, have you had experience with avian flu? How many birds do you have?
I have 8 to 12 usually. Right now I have 10.
Are they all chickens?
Yeah, actually I have chickens and a few ducks. And so, you know, the ducks could become a problem with this avian flu because they could mingle with other ducks outside of their, not domestic ducks, but water fowl. Yeah, this topic interests me because if, you know, possibly brought in waterfowl into my area and my chickens intermingled, they could possibly get killed. Or as Terry mentioned, if people go out hunting and they bring home dead birds, ducks, and haven't washed their hands or cleaned themselves properly and go out and mess with their chickens, they could spread it. And also, as a bird owner, wouldn't it be a disastrous thing to be a backyard owner and not know about avian flu and then spread it to the commercial part and just destroy a lot of birds here in Utah?
So are your birds free ranging on your property? They're not in cages? I mean, does that put them at bigger danger because a duck can land in there?
It could. Where I live, it's more out in the country, and so I have probably more birds that could come and land on my property. I have an acre of land, and mine do not free range. I have a area that they're contained in, and then when I let them out, there's a little fenced area. Mm-hmm. I know that people like to free range, and so they should possibly free range, but be careful in knowing what's around them. Ponds, if they go out and mingle with ducks on ponds, or if you're close to a pond. What if you walked to a pond and picked up some droppings on your feet and then walked back into the bird cage? Possibly 1 million viruses bury in one dime size dropping.
It's pretty high concentrations. Yep.
So you're always aware of this problem when you're dealing with your animals?
Yeah, I am, especially reading the news in Asia and now reading the news in Iowa. I can't remember, is it 40% or 60% of Iowa's bird layers?
70% of the layers in Iowa, and 8,500 jobs, $427 million, and 34 million birds were depopulated there on 77 different farms. So big in Iowa.
Depopulated, is that a euphemism for die?
I'm afraid it is.
I have friends that had to kill 5 million birds plus as a result of that.
5 million?
5 million that got it, yeah.
Now, it hasn't wiped out a large number of your birds, has it?
No, Utah has not had the direct infection. We just had indirect effects from it, but no birds in Utah.
We've had
wild ducks.
2 birds.
Yes.
December, the Wildlife Resources tested one bird, came back positive in January, and that was out of Davis County. So healthy bird, routine surveillance, they enhanced their surveillance to find it, so they did. Again, in September of this year, we found a mallard duck out of Farmington Bay, had been tagged during the summer, that they did another enhanced routine surveillance and found it in the duck. Yeah. So it's out there. This is an H5 N8 type, so it is the one that's causing high pathogenic avian influenza across the U.S.
And we've had no cases in Utah of it being passed to humans?
No problem with humans, no problem with commercial, and no problem with backyard yet.
Now, one of the words that I've heard in studying this issue here is bio-securities that are in place to protect the birds in the industry. Explain bio-securities to me.
Biosecurity is simply looking for viruses, infections, or anything like that could be spread, and doing preventive measures to stop any of that spread from happening. And I guess a great example would be, let's say propane trucks deliver propane to a bunch of turkey growers down in southern Utah, where they go from house to house to house to fill up propane. Mm-hmm. That's a big concern. People don't really think about that, but those trucks, if we get an outbreak on any one of those turkey growers, the propane truck could visit several premises in a day. FedEx would be another one people don't normally think about for biosecurity.
Trucks, mailmen,
meter readers, another one is meter readers can actually go on, read the meters on properties and spread disease.
Well, do you have some kind of program in place like the state does, looking for quagga mussels, where they inspect boats that have been on lakes from out of state? I mean, are you inspecting propane trucks and others?
We don't. It'd be nice if we could see this virus, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah. We don't inspect them, but we do encourage them to spray tires and that type of thing. If there is potential for an outbreak, we really step up procedures for biosecurity when we have a case, an index case is what we call it. We will increase and ask all those guys to wash their trucks.
Well, we've got the holiday season coming up here too. And a lot of turkey dinners are going to be cooked. And we saw in our story earlier from the Moroni area, the turkey farmers. What's the biggest concern? Is it the turkeys? Is it the chickens? Is it the ducks or the backyard bird owners?
The concern down there would be the initial index case. If a wild bird happened to infect one of the flocks down there, that's our main concern because of the flyover and the migratory path. So if that occurs, that's when we really step in and activate everything we have to stop it from that one index farm. So,
do you try to decontaminate all the trucks that come into the Oakdale farms?
We're regulating everybody that comes in to make sure they don't cross certain boundaries, because they can come to shipping points, but we don't want anybody except a few employees to go back and deal with the birds. So, and then for all of our eggs that are shipped out, we disinfect every truck inside of the truck too before it goes out.
Mm-hmm. Is there a danger that the egg could be infected itself?
You know, this is really a bird issue. It's not a human issue, and so it's not a. We really need to remember that it's for the birds are going to get sick, but not the humans.
So the eggs are safe.
The eggs are
what
safe.
he's saying
Yeah.
is grocery stores, chickens, even ducks that they sell, all those are safe. What we worry about is the live populations of birds.
Do you fall under some of the same regulations, Casey, as say the major producers do with your backyard birds?
No, I don't. But that's why we need to be more aware as backyard people, is thinking about the fact that we could bring in this influenza and infect everybody else. And so I think that's kind of like caring for your neighbor, not just caring for your flock, but caring for other people, because if you wiped out, possibly if some bird influenza happened and it wiped out yours and then wiped out other people, and so being able to identify your chicken if it's sick. Barry, what are some of the things that you would use?
Terry, that's a great question, and you hit on it exactly. I just heard where a town in South Ogden that requesting for birds that they can own birds in their backyard. Right now there's an ordinance against it. A lot of these families think it would be a great idea to have a couple chickens to get some eggs and that type of, and it helps teach your kids. You've got 6 kids. I know they've learned a lot from your birds, but
more than they want.
Yeah, it's a great thing to bring the farm to the house, but we really need to know where those birds are. So if South Ogden does incorporate a ordinance where they allow those birds, I know one thing: roosters they don't like because of the noise. They crow every morning, so they don't like that part of it. But if they do decide to pass a law where they allowed to have a couple birds, it would be great for us to know where those are, just in case something happens.
Yeah, we have a rooster in my neighborhood that is rather regular about waking me up at times. Well, several questions come to mind, and I want to get to those. What the average person can look for, and how do you tell if a bird's got the flu? We'll be back in a moment, try to answer those questions.
Have you ever wanted to recreate the world around you? Add some excitement, culture, adventure? Well, there's no need to remake the world when that perfect combination already exists. Just remember 4 words. Welcome to Weber County. In Ogden, you'll find everything you're looking for, from the top of Powder Mountain to the restaurants of our revitalized downtown. Ogden, Utah, mountain to metro and everything in between. Visit Ogden.com.
There is a place where looking out means looking in, where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
What's the story of your life? What chapter are you on? Did you happen to get married recently? Perhaps you found your lost puppy at the animal shelter. Or you're taking an art class at the senior center. There's that flu shot that kept you well last season. And don't forget the museums and historical sites your family loves, and all the fun you have at the County Swim Center. County services, from search and rescue to maintaining roads, bring tremendous value to each of our lives. We're the Utah Association of Counties, helping you build the story of your life.
Welcome back, everyone. Bird flu, avian flu, that's our topic this Sunday morning and why it's important to you. Casey, I want to ask you as a bird owner, what do you look for? What do you do if you suspect one of your birds has flu?
Well, if you think that one of your birds has flu, you want to separate the bird immediately from the other birds. And there's a series of things that you look for warning signs for this, and Barry will talk about those things. So yeah, Barry, why don't you
I'll cover those real quick. Highly pathogenic avian influenza, unfortunately, has a high mortality rate, which means it kills a lot of birds. So sometimes the first sign you see is dead birds. If they're not dead, you'll see birds that wheeze, they kind of hang their head, have trouble breathing. The wattles, the red part of their heads, sometimes will be blue in color because it's what we call cyanosis. They're not getting enough oxygen. So just breathe, just like a normal influenza would look like in humans, coughing, sneezing, that type of thing. Lethargy, where they just lay around, and then sometimes it's just as subtle as low egg production or something of that nature that you can initially find out.
So you suspect your bird has flu. What do you do then? What's the next step?
Well, if it were in a commercial operation, we would take samples right away, and we'd send them to Logan, and we'd send one to Ames, Iowa right away, because whenever this virus is present, the quicker you kill it, you save millions and millions of dollars and millions of bird lives too. The quicker the better.
Are the major poultry and egg producers in the state of Utah together on this? I mean, are you working in tandem with?
Absolutely. This is a unified effort through Department of Ag. We work very closely together on that.
Are backyard bird owners working together too?
Probably
or are you
not,
just up to
each
each individual?
Each individual, but I would say that if if a backyard bird owner thought that their chickens were infected, they would call the agricultural extension or a veterinarian or something, because they wouldn't want that to go to other birds.
I have a great example of that. We got a call last week actually on a commercial operation that had 1.2 million birds. Just south of them, in Utah, just south of them about 5 miles, there was a backyard bird owner, and he had heard that a lot of this gentleman's birds died. So we immediately sent a veterinarian, one of our state field veterinarians down there, sampled the birds in that backyard flock and sent them to Logan, and we got a negative response back, which put the commercial owner at ease about being that close proximity to his place. So we do react.
Your office is located here in Salt Lake City at Department of Agriculture building.
Yes, sir.
And they do testing up in Logan. So somebody calls your office and says, I suspect I got it. What steps?
We send a vet out immediately. We try to get there within 4 hours. We have several veterinarians that are well educated on how to sample for birds and others too. So
I know you have a website.
We've got several websites actually. Utah Department of Ag and Food, and I think we can probably put those on this program.
We'll have them right here on the screen, and we'll also have a link on our county seat website.
Yeah, but so Wildlife Resources also has a great website about the wild part of it too. So.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. We're out of time now, but it's been very interesting information today. I've learned a lot about something I knew very little about. And thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning. I'm Terry Wood for the County Seat.
If you like this video, then we invite you to subscribe to our channel, The County Seat. You can do that here. And we invite you to share with your friends. We also invite you to get all the latest up-to-date information by following us on our social media channels. And if all else fails, make sure that you watch The County Seat Sunday morning at 8:30 right here on ABC4.